Hey guys, so last week before the break, we talked about factoring. So let's really just go over the basics of what that means when we're factoring. Sorry, I'm gonna rotate this, so it probably started off weird in the beginning. Anyways, when we are factoring, we're basically finding the greatest common factor. So it's something that goes into either our number or our variable. And we'll use our calculator for the number part. For the variable, we will do that together. So let's review on page 11 what we did. To find the greatest factor, let's talk about conceptually what that means first, and then we'll talk about how we can do that in our calculator. The GCF is the biggest number that goes into our two numbers. So for example, our factors of 20 would be 1 and 20, 2 and 10, 4 and 5. Our factors of 36, we have 1 and 36, 2 and 18, 3 and 12, 4 and 9. And you'll notice that the GCF for 20 and 36 would be 4. It's the biggest number that goes into both of these numbers, okay? All right, now on our calculator, you might want to write these steps down. When we're looking for the GCF of numbers in our calculator, we can press the math button and then go over to number. Maybe I'll put a comma. And you're going to go to number 9 that says GCD and hit enter. Or you can just hit 9. And then put in your two numbers separated by a comma. So 20, the comma is above the 7, comma 36, 36, close your parentheses, hit enter, and you'll see that we get 4. Let's do one more, 36 and 56. Again, math. Go over to number 9, 36 and 56. And we get 4. Not a mistake, it just happens that way. Go ahead and try to do C by yourself before we do it together. All right, so again, math, go over to number 9, I have 49, comma 23. And that GCF is just 1. And that's fine. It is possible for the GCF to be 1. Now, when we're talking about the GCF for variables, we are looking for the lowest exponent. Okay, so for x squared and x to the 5th, the lowest exponent would be x squared. For this one, we have to do piece by piece. So first, we're going to compare the x's. The lowest exponent will be x to the 1st, right? This is the imaginary one that we don't see. For our y's, I have y squared and y squared. They are the same, but that is our lowest exponent. You can pull that out. Go ahead and try f before we go over that together, and pause the video if you need to. All right. So I have a squared and a cubed. The lowest exponent there is a squared. And then we have b squared and b, the lowest exponent there would just be b. And then we have c squared and c squared, so that would be c squared. Okay? All right. I'll do one of these problems, and then we'll get into factoring our polynomials and trinomials. So this first one, let's do the numbers first, okay? So 15 and 6. My GCF of 15 and 6, we're going to use our calculator, math, number 9. 15, comma 6 is going to be 3. And now let's do the variables. So I have x cubed and x squared. The GCF there is going to be x squared. And then I have y, and notice your second term doesn't have a y, right? So it's like y and 1, basically. But there's no y's there, so we're not allowed to pull out any y. So our combined GCF is 3x squared. All right, I don't think that's where a lot of people struggled with when we were in class. It's this next step. So I have 3x squared. That is our GCF. So what we're doing is we're taking the original expression, 15x cubed y plus 6x squared. And what we're doing is we are dividing out 3x squared. So 15 divided by 3 I'm going to have 5. X cubed divided by x squared, we subtract our exponent, so that's going to be x to the first power. We don't take out any y, so the y stays. Okay, so that was this. Let's try the next part now. Plus 6x squared. So we're going to take the plus. 6 divided by 3. If you can do that in your head, beautiful. 2. And then x squared divided by x squared. Well, then the x squares go away completely, right? Because x squared divided by x squared is just 1, so that just goes away. So this is our final answer. Okay. More importantly, we needed that when we started factoring by grouping. I'm going to go ahead and go to page 16 where we had the extra practice. Remember, when we factor by grouping, we're separating it into 2 parts and then doing what we just did before. So this first one would be, I'm going to separate x cubed plus 4x squared. That's my first group, and my second group is 2x plus 8. I'm not doing anything special. Okay, I'm just separating them. There's 4 terms. I'm separating them into 2 terms and 2 terms. I should have put a plus there. Okay, that's going to be important. All right, so if you need to, let's go ahead and do the first part, the purple part. I have 1 and 4, right? Because in front of the x cubed is an imaginary 1. The GCF there is going to be 1. And then I have x cubed and x squared. The GCF there is going to be x squared. So your GCF here is 1x squared. And we'll talk about what we're supposed to get inside our parentheses. Remember, you're taking the original expression, which was 1x cubed plus 4x squared. And we are now dividing by 1x squared. 1 divided by 1 is 1. X cubed divided by x squared, we're left with x to the first power. If you need to write the 1, you absolutely can. 4, positive 4 divided by 1 is positive 4. X squared divided by x squared goes away. So this is what I have for when I factored out the purple part by GCF. Okay, let's do the the same thing for the green part. So I have 2x plus 8. So I have 2 and 8. My GCF there is going to be 2. X and blank. My GCF there is just blank. So our combined GCF is 2x. And now let's figure out what's inside our parentheses. So again, we're taking our original expression, which was 2x plus 8. Whoops, this should have just been 2. Sorry. I hope I didn't confuse anyone there. Because this combined is 2, right? So we're just pulling out a 2. So we're going to divide by 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. X divided by, there's nothing to divide by there, so we bring down the x. 8 divided by 2 is 4. So this is what we get when we factor the second part by our GCF. We said in class we know we're on the right track because inside the parentheses is the same. So that becomes one of our factors, right? So we're breaking it up. One of our factors becomes 1x plus 4. Our second factor is everything that was left over. 1x squared plus 2. All right, let's do another example problem together. I'll do the one right below it. So let's see if you can, pause step by step. Go ahead and see if you can do step 1. Step 1 is the easy step. Step 1 is to separate into 2 groups. All right, so I have my 2 groups are 2r squared minus 6r and then minus 4r plus 12. Those are our 2 groups. Step 2 is factor by GCF. So I'll do the first group first. See if you guys can pause the video and try to do that by yourself before we go over it. So we're going to try to factor this group by GCF. I have 2 and 6. My GCF there is going to be 2. Again, I've gotten really good at this where I can do it in my head, but if you need to, you can use your calculator. You go to math, number 9, and you're going to put in 2, 6. And then I have r squared and r. Remember, we take the lower exponent, and then we get 2r. So our combined GCF here is 2r. Figure out what's inside the parentheses. Go ahead and pause the video again if you need to. See if you can do this next step by yourself. So originally we had 2r squared minus 6r. We're going to divide out 2r. 2 divided by 2 is 1. R squared divided by r is just r. Now I have a negative 6. Negative 6 divided by 2 is a minus 3. R divided by r is r. So that's what I have for my first part. Let's go ahead and do the same thing for our second part. So I have negative 4 and 12. Okay, so when you put in your calculator, if you try to put in negative 4, it's going to give you the wrong answer. So we're going to work with positive numbers only in our calculator. Positive 4 and 12. It gives us our GCF is 4. But the only thing is, since we started off with a negative, you need to make sure that this is a negative 4. Always keep the sign of that first number. Okay? We don't care about the second number. Always keep the sign of the first number. And then we have r and no r. That means there is no r. So our GCF here is just negative 4. And let's see if we can figure out what's inside our parentheses. All right, I have negative 4 divided by negative 4 is a positive 1. There's nothing to divide the r by, so let's bring that down. Positive 12 divided by negative 4 is negative 3. Ask yourself, how do I know I'm on the right track right now? I know I'm on the right track because inside the parentheses are exactly the same. So I have 1r minus 3. And can you figure out the other factor? The other factor is 2r minus 4. Nice job. We learned one more type of factoring, which is factoring quadratic trinomials. Go ahead and join me on page 19 with the extra practice. I'm going to do 1 or 2 problems. You guys have this dry erase that I provided you, and I do suggest you use it. I think it is really helpful. I'm going to pick a problem. Let's do the first one. 5x squared minus 41x plus 8, right? Okay, so I'm just going to get out of my calculator. Oh, actually, I'm going to need it, so let me bring it back out. So, first thing I'm going to do is, let's fill this in. This was 5. This was minus 41, and that's important. This was plus 8. Okay, the first step is to identify our A, B, and C's. A was 5. B was negative 41. That's so important. And C is positive 8. Step 2 says multiply A times C. Okay, so my A was 5 and my C was 8. If I multiply them, I just did it on my calculator, I get 40. And that's the number inside my circle. Create a table to find the factors of 40. Put 40 divided by x into y equals in your calculator. So we go to y equals. I'm going to put 40 divided by x. And you remember how we get a table of values? We press second graph. Okay, so I'm going to start at 0. 0 gives us an error. So remember, we only want whole numbers. I have 1 and 40. And 1 and 40 adds up to 41. What we wanted to add up to is negative 41. I taught you guys a really, really neat trick to do that. If we get the opposite of what we want, all we have to do is change the sign of every single piece. So negative 1, negative 40 will give us negative 41. So this is what I want. Okay, your paper says to circle. I'm going to highlight. Step 3 is break up your BX terms. I don't need that anymore. You might need it into the 2 numbers that you found. So everything's going to stay the same, right? The A and the C values at least. So A was 5 and C was 8. Now we're talking about the 2 middle terms. The 2 numbers I found were negative 1 and negative 40. Okay, and now we have a 4-term polynomial, which we know how to factor already. This is 5x squared minus 1x. And this is, negative 40x plus 8. We're going to factor by grouping. 5 and negative 1, the GCF there is going to be 5. It's going to be 1. X squared and x, the GCF there is going to be 1x. All right, I'm going to speed through this because we already did 2 problems like this, and not to include all the ones we did in class already. If I factor, I like to write on top, just so I know what I'm dividing. 5 divided by 1 is 5. X squared divided by x is just x. Negative 1 divided by 1 is negative 1. X divided by x goes away. All right, next piece. Negative 40 and 8. Remember the calculator, if you put it in, you have to use positive numbers. You end up getting 8, but we always keep the sign of the first number. In this case, it was negative 40, so this is negative 8. And then x and blank, so no x. So our GCF here is just negative 8. You should already know what's going to be inside the parentheses in order for this problem to work out. Negative 40 divided by negative 8 is 5. X, there's nothing to divide by, bring that down. Positive 8 divided by negative 8 is negative 1. We know we're on the right track because inside our parentheses is the same, so I get 5x minus 1. And our other factor is going to be 1x minus 8. All right, there you have it. Thank you for joining me today. It's a dry erase. You guys can erase this. If you feel like there's an important hint that you need, write it down in Sharpie on your dry erase board because it is yours to keep, okay? I would pick another problem from this extra practice and then see if you guys can do it by yourself. Otherwise, you guys can always ask me a question in class. You can leave a comment here. You can email me. You can send me a message on Remind. Thank you for joining me today. Hope to see you guys soon. Bye.